Today I want to do something different. Instead of a round shape, I want to build a rectangle shape. I want to build a 3D movie poster inspired by one of my favorite 80s movies, The Goonies. Hey you guys! It's gonna be a big, complicated piece. Imagine this. First, this is the only picture I could find of myself next to the wall, and I am not festive enough, so let's fix that. Yo ho, is the pirate's life for me. Much better. Now I'm ready to look for some treasure. I'm gonna start off with a poster-shaped box. But of course, this box needs to be a shadow box so that way it can be 3D. So the first thing I want to do is give a picturesque little scene of the Oregon coast and then add in the Fratelli's lighthouse and the wishing well. This will all be on its own layer to represent the outside. Then of course we need the map and the doubloon before heading into the inside underground caves. The first cave is going to have Chester Copper Pot, and then the second cave is going to have the wishing well with all the little coins. Now we're going to go another level down into the caves to see this bone organ and this cool rock face, and then the log scene, but the Fratellis are going to be there. Then I'm going to add some waterfalls and the big pirate ship, the Inferno, that whole scene with the water and the kids in it just being wowed by the ship. And under the water is going to be a whole bunch of coins and gemstones with One Eye Willie because that's his treasure. And there you go, a big slice of the Goondocks. This is definitely going to be new and exciting for me. I cannot wait to start this adventure. So the first thing I'm going to do is build a 2-foot by 3-foot shadow box. So let's go bust out the woodworking tools. Are you ready for some epic shots of me sanding wood? Well, here you go. I knew when I wanted to build this shadow box, I wanted it to feel like a picture frame. One of those high quality ones with lots of little details in the frame, and I knew it was going to take time to build, but it was going to be so worth it. Hold that thought for the traditional safety dance. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll understand. I stained the box to look like wood from an old pirate ship. I also stained this beautiful trim that I found that is perfect for the frame part. And with the stain all dry, I give it a nice clear coat. And with that all set, I could put the box together. Now I can attach the hardware to the back. I bought the most heavy-duty hardware I could find because I knew this was going to weigh a lot. Also using my husband's hand strength to make sure it was really tight. Now to finish it up by adding the trim pieces to make the frame.
This is actually way bigger than I thought it would be. Let's go find a wreath and put the wreath in it. Yeah, look at this wreath in it. So this is the size I'm used to doing. This is gonna be quite a challenge, but you know, Goonies never say die.
Goonies never say die!
I think this is gonna be fun, but you know, maybe I will never do this again.
Now with the shadow box done, it's time to sketch out a rough layout of my design. And with that finished, I can get to work. I started off by painting the sky for the first layer. Then out of craft wood, I make the lighthouse, which is the Fratelli hideout. I just need the basic shape so I can build the ground and the rocks. Now I can start cutting out the ground layer out of insulation foam, using my razor blade to cut sharp edges into it to mimic rocks. Satisfying yet messy. I draw out where I want the wishing well to be and create some mountains for the scenic view. Then I can start putting them in their place. Sometimes what I like to do is cut out the size and the shape of the item that's going to go in the spot that I want it to. This helps me tremendously because I'm a visual person and I want to get a feel for how it's going to look before I actually do it. Now I can start on the second layer. This is the level where the caves are going to start. I want it to feel like if you went under the lighthouse, you would be in caves just like in the movie. It's actually one of the best parts about the movie is that they get to go through all these caves with booby traps and stuff. And I'm just gonna make those rough shapes again so I can kind of get a feel for some of the sizing. Now I can start sculpting the pirate ship, the Inferno. Would it have been easier to find like a pirate ship and 3D print it or something like that? Absolutely. But I really wanted to add the certain details in it that really makes it special. Just like in the movie, I wanted to create it from scratch too. The set designers in the movie really made this ship. The Inferno took 2.5 months to build and was kept secret from the cast. In the scene where the kids come up out of the water and look at the pirate ship for the first time, the director wanted their real reaction to it. Unfortunately, Josh Brolin, who plays Brand in the movie, has said in several interviews he ruined that take by cussing in it. Can you imagine all the build up to this scene and you accidentally drop the F-bomb in a G-rated movie? So of course, they couldn't use that take. But still, the set designers that worked on that movie, I just give such epic props to. Maybe one day I can work on a movie set. Or at least one day build cool aesthetics in my forever house. Actually, my next project is a test project for my forever house projects that I want to do. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe. Also, go join my Patreon if you want to know what that project is ahead of time. So here's where the Inferno starts to get really unique. It has this cool wooden spiral piece that I just really love. With lots of little leaves with like these cool little indented details. I mean, I just love that type of aesthetic. Like I said, one day when I have my forever home, I'm gonna do lots of little cool character-like details like that into it. I can't wait. If you don't know this, my husband's in the military and we only have a couple years left until he can retire. Currently, we live in Florida, which isn't bad. I live in military housing, which is only a block from the ocean. I mean, that's pretty cool. But we cannot wait to move back to our home state of Michigan. I cannot wait to get back into freshwater lakes and snow. For one of my next videos, maybe I should do an interview for myself so that way you can kind of get to know me a little bit better. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see something like that. Or maybe I'll just stick to the art. Now it's time to make a mold out of the Inferno. I make walls out of cardboard and hot glue them together. Then I mix up some smooth on silicone Mold Star Fast 16. This stuff's really cool because it cures within like 30 minutes, and it's so hard to stay patient, so I'm so glad it cures that fast. Now I can demold the clay and cast it in resin and foam. Till you get this, and now I can paint it. I gave the coloring a fade just like in the movie, so from like the top deck down to the lowest part, it kind of fades into a lighter color. And then the rails on the side will be gray. Now a cool way to make all those details pop that are carved into it is by giving it a wash of some light black paint. Plus, you don't want the pirate ship to look too clean because, you know, it is a pirate ship. Now using spray foam as adhesive, I can glue the ship to the backing. With that dry, I'm going to re-drill out the holes so I can put the poles for the sails in. Using spray foam again, I'm going to start bulking out the bottom of the shadow box so I can start putting coins and gems and treasure. Now the coins you see me using here is what I started off using, but to me they were not pirate-like enough, so I had to replace them later, so we'll just skip over this part. Also, when it dried, the spray foam didn't hold the coins in place really great, so it's okay, we'll fix this later. For now, let's work on the ground that's under the water. I started off by using foil to create some of the lumpy bumps for the rock pieces. Then I laid down some glue clay for the clay. I like using rocks to create rock texture onto clay, and also real rocks into the clay, using Mod Podge as a glue base so I can put sand on it. I also used watered down Mod Podge on top of it to keep everything in place. Now I'm going to give a quick paint job to the rocks and the sand before sealing it again with Mod Podge, and this is because I'm going to pour resin on top. With the type of resin I'm using, which is a deep pour resin to create water, you want everything super sealed, and you'll see later that I did not get every little spot, but that's okay, it still turned out okay. Right now I'm going to use plexiglass to create a border and then seal it all with caulk. This part was actually really hard because there was so many facets to the design. Like, I really needed to make sure that I sealed this as best as possible, and I still did not get it, like I said. Oh, and before I can pour the resin, I need to make the Goonie kids. They're going to be standing in the water looking at the pirate ship, just like in the movie. I sculpted the pieces that would show out of the water first and then went back and added legs. Oh, and here I am going back and sealing it again against the shadow box. This was a lengthy process. I also made sure to let the caulk cure for a full 24 hours before I poured the resin, which gave me time to set the kids in place and kind of start playing around with the cavern, or whatever you call it, coloring. Also painting this plaster sand mixture to give the rocks some cool texture. But now the time has come to start mixing up the clear resin. Add pigments of blue, green, and brown into the water, and then pour it in and let it cure. But look it, you can see right there, there's a little drip. It drives me crazy that that happened after all that sealing, but it's okay, it turned out fine.
Hey, so I'm sorry you haven't seen my face in a while. I've been really sick and I've just been working behind the scenes, but here it is. So the resin in here is all cured, so it's the moment of truth where I get to take off the plastic and see how it looks. I've worked with resin for a long time, but I've never done like multiple angles where I had to really make sure that it was waterproof. And when I do usually do it, it's with cardboard and hot glue, so it's a lot easier to make sure that it's all sealed off. But this I had to use silicone for to make sure that nothing leaked. Unfortunately, it did leak a little, but that's okay. It didn't do anything severely damaging because I didn't finish this coin part down here yet. You can see some of the blue water is stuck in the foam, but I can easily just carve that out because I'm like I said, I'm not done with that yet. But note to self for future projects, finish the resin and then finish things below it. But anyways, I'm really excited to pull off this plexiglass and see what it fully looks like. Hopefully there's not too much I need to clean up and I could just pull it off, but let's see. I might need to sand it, I might need to do other things. We'll find out.
Oh my, when I was making that video, I did not realize what I did. As you can see by my struggle bus in the back, the plexiglass adhered to the resin. Completely my fault. I did not realize that I had to put release agent on the plexiglass so it wouldn't adhere to it.
Well, I accidentally created more work for myself than I needed to. So now to fix it, I need to sand it like a lot. Now let's see if I can fix this.
It actually didn't take that long to fix this, and I might have had to do this anyways because I see a lot of people who do like dioramas with resin that, you know, is a water feature. They sand it anyways, so I probably would have done it. So with that finished, I'm going to move back to making the lighthouse. Using the wood shell that I did before, I'm just going to take a Dremel and cut out the windows. Also cutting out some plexiglass to go in the windows. But before I could glue them in place, I need to do the clay part. I use a clay roller to roll out sheets so it will be uniform on the house. Use some clay glue and lay the clay over it before cutting out the windows again with a razor blade. And I just work my way around the house until all the wood is covered in clay. Now I can start marking off the wood beams and the tiles for the roof. I also like to go over the wood planks and put wood details in them. So many little tiles. Now using some craft wood, I'm going to go back and cut out little tiny wood planks for the window frames. And after baking it in the oven, I can start painting it. I give a base coat of a dark brown before going back over and dry brushing gray, gluing the plexiglass in place. Then I create this cool moss effect. This really makes it look like it lives in the Pacific Northwest. Trust me, I lived there for 5 years.
Now I'm going to start sculpting that lighthouse piece that's like the silo where the light actually sits on top, but in the movie it's broken and damaged. So I'm going to add lots of little boards and sticks sticking out like it broke in half. In the movie it also has this cool little cross-hatched section, which I added as well. Then after baking it, I'm going to start painting it, adding lots of little details to it to make it look like it's not so new. Now with those pieces in place, I can start building the porch. I use that same craft wood and cut each plank by hand and place it. This actually took a very long time. I think this part took me like 3 or 4 hours. It was crazy. I also paint all these cool little water details into some resin. And I'm going to place this 3D printed doubloon that I painted. And then I'm going to move on to Chester Copperpot. Spoiler alert, they find him dead in the first cave. Unfortunately, the booby traps got him and he was stuck under a big boulder. I don't know why, but I am kind of obsessed with skeletons, so this was really fun to make. Like, I have a lot of skeleton pieces in my house. Check out this guitar that I painted. I did that like 8 years ago now. I mean, ugh, time flies. Oh look, and I made his little wallet and all these cool little dynamite sticks. If you know, you know. Now I'm gonna give him a scary skeleton paint job before gluing him in place. And there's his little wallet again. Why are little things so cute? Oh, and I 3D printed this little tiny skeleton key, which I absolutely love. Also, I'm placing little scraps of fabric around his body because it's kind of decaying, so his clothes are kind of falling off him, and placing this stick of dynamite. Now I'm going to move on to the wishing well, which I also 3D printed that little bucket. Then I bought silver and copper clay, rolled them out into little lines, and cut out every little tiny piece of coin. And then I glued them all in place. Now I'm going to move on to making the bone skeleton organ. Again, another skeleton. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the whole piece, actually. I think it turned out really good. Making a detailed breastplate before moving on to the background. I took real brass metal tubes and cut them up for the pipes. This actually worked really well because it made it feel more like an organ pipe. Then I made a bunch of little skeleton fingers for the keys. Painting a basic background, adding some moss, and then painting this really dirty wash. This is probably my favorite part of the whole piece, but then again, I really like skeletons. Now I glue them in place before moving on to the skull rock. There's a part in the movie where the kids are running from the Fratellis and they run right into the skull rock. And though it's a pathway in the movie, I want to make it a waterfall that glows. So I really built up the foil behind this to give it a good hollow cavern. That way I can glue it into place, paint it, and then stick cellophane gift wrap inside of it to give it that really cool glow. Now I'm going to start working on the waterfalls. I mark off the size of each waterfall and then I use this stuff from Woodland Scenics called Water Effects to make the waterfalls. I've never used this before, so this was the first time, and I want to say that I didn't really care for it too much, but you'll see in a minute. Once you have your waterfall in place, you're supposed to stick a little toothpick through it to give it some nice definition with lines. And I'll let those dry overnight and finish up the cavern so that way it's ready for the waterfalls. And here it is dry, and I don't know if I didn't do it completely right, but I just don't like how unrealistic it looks. It still was a great base for the waterfalls I did do, but I went with another method. I'll put the video in the description of whose method I use. But essentially, you take fiberfill and then Woodland Scenics realistic water and paint it on top of it. You also use snowflakes to blow a little bit of texture in the waterfall. I absolutely loved this method. I think it turned out so much better. Now I'm going to go back and finish the log scene. To create the log, I wrapped a dowel in clay and then gave it some wood texture. And then I put the log in place before sculpting the Fratellis. Took them out, baked them, painted them, and then put them back. Now to sculpt the fourth skull on this piece, One-Eyed Willie. Obviously I had some help right there from a skeleton friend, but then I realized halfway through, hey, he only has one eye. I really need to fill in that eye. Whoops, but that's okay. It was an easy enough fix. But now with the basic structure in place, I can go and do some really cool detail work on his teeth.
I had to look at lots of pictures of One-Eye Willie because he's missing certain teeth to make sure I did the right ones. But don't ask me why, I find this really fun. And then of course, again, giving him his missing eye before baking him and then painting him. And what would a pirate be without his eye patch? One-Eye Willie had very specific gemstones and coloring and a headscarf, but it was all worth it in the end. Now I'm going to move on to creating the sails for the ship. I did this by tying dowels into place with wire, bunching fabric, and then gluing it all into place. And of course painting the fabric so it looks like it's been in a cave for hundreds of years. And as I said, I went back and changed out all those coins to be more piratey, and then put gemstones in place and a baby Ruth for sloth. And finally adding lights to the back of the trim. Let's go to the reveal. I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon. You all help vote for this project to make it happen, and I hope you guys like it as much as I do. I'm planning to do another giveaway in May or June. These giveaways are for only my Patreon members, so make sure to go join us over there. And if you like what you see and you just want to support me easily, just like and subscribe. That alone really helps me out. Thank you so much. Until next time, Goonies, never say die.